ahead of time just so that we could have questions ready to go. And then you could also pile on and add more questions as we get started. So as I do, I should have closed my blinds right before this. The sun is coming in. It's a wonderful California morning. Birds are chirping, so we're good over here. Hi, Noreen. Welcome, everybody. Yes, so today is going to be an Ask Me Anything session, all about anything related to community building and memberships. So that's obviously quite broad, but you're welcome to bring all of the broad information or all the broad questions that you might have to today's session, because I know that getting into the weeds on this work makes all kinds of things come up. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm really excited. So for those of you who don't know me yet, I am Carrie Melissa Jones. I am the founder of the CMJ Group, and we help organizations of all sizes invest in building incredible online communities that connect customers, stakeholders, other people important to your success. And I'm also the co-author of this book right behind me. Boop. And it might be flipped around for you, like Building Brand Communities. Hey, Jamar. And that book came out in 2020. Charles and I, when we wrote it, we were like, let's write something that's completely durable, that will last no matter what. So it came out during the pandemic. We did not write it for a pandemic, but it applied during the pandemic and continues to apply to this day. So I can probably answer lots of your questions inside of that book if you have not already read it, but I'm also going to be diving deep into details here. So that book is really about big, broad level strategy, about setting an intention for building community and what that needs to look like and how you should be investing. And this is really going to be about what are the challenges and what's coming up as we're actually doing the building. So that's what today's session is all about. Feel free to drop me questions throughout today. If you're like, I have to run in 5 minutes and you just want to drop your question and I'll answer it and it will be recorded and on the live in perpetuity, you can do that. You can add questions as we go. It's really up to you. The other thing I want to mention is that this work requires a lot of support. And there's a lot of people, though, who have been doing this work for a long time, myself included. And you shouldn't be building community alone. You should be building community in community. And I say that because it's so easy to burn out or just get lost in the sauce in terms of, you're building this community. You're not sure if you're doing a good job. You're not sure if you're actually successful. You're not sure if your community is actually thriving. And if you're just waiting on your gut to tell you that you're doing a good job, my experience tells me that it will convince you that there's always more that can be done, that you always could be doing better. And that is an exhausting thought and it leads to burnout. There's a lot of burnout in this profession and in this work. And I don't want that for you. I don't think you want that for yourself either. So as you do this work, I want you to know that I'm here as a resource. And I also want to recommend that you check out the workshop that's in this video description on YouTube or on LinkedIn, depending on where you are watching this live from today. And that's going to link you to a workshop that's going to teach an overarching framework for how to think about community success. So how to create the thriving community of your dreams. And that's going to walk you through this 6-part framework. It's going to go deep into examples and details and really teach you what you need to know, whether you're just getting started in your community journey or whether you're even a few years in or multiple years in and you want to optimize what you already have. You want to make sure that what you're doing is actually following best practices, if that's language that resonates with you. For some of us, we're like, what the heck does that mean? Following what experts would tell you to do is what I'll just call that. So yes, that's what we're doing today. All of the questions. I already see one came in from Jamar. I will answer that one first because I'm going to give precedence to the questions that are coming in live for those of you who are actually here today. So we'll begin there and then we're going to jump and dive into even more questions that I have that I've collected from others who have asked me their most burning community questions. So all right, Jamar, your question. What's your opinion on month-to-month membership payment options? I recently changed to quarterly and biannually. Yeah, so it's interesting because I actually have a monthly payment option and I don't recommend them. Not because I have one. I am breaking the rule because I know the rule because I'm allowed to do whatever I want. But my opinion on month-to-month memberships is that almost all communities take more than 1 month to get any kind of value out of. And so it's important to set that expectation going into things. And when you have a monthly membership, that starts to set the expectation of, if I didn't get enough value out of 30 days of being in this membership, that I shouldn't continue in it. And so what it's also doing is it's forcing someone to make a decision every 30 days. Should I keep paying or should I not? And this isn't like Netflix where it's like, well, yeah, I watched, I don't even know how many hours of Gilmore Girls last month, so obviously I'm going to renew. It's like, did I actually make the time to do the thing in this membership that I told myself I was going to do? Um, and a lot of times the answer to that is no. Somebody didn't. But just because they didn't do anything concrete in 1 month in your membership doesn't mean it's a failure for them. It doesn't mean it's a failure for you. It means that they're going to have to find a way to rededicate themselves and find an avenue in to the membership. But it is, it's really, really hard to get people in 1 month. We will eventually turn off our month by month option. I was testing it because I was testing my own recommendation here, and I learned exactly what I thought I would learn, which is that when people sign up monthly, they tend to churn faster. Obviously, they churn faster because they can churn faster, but those who have been on our quarterly plan tend to continue on the quarterly plan, or who sign up for the annual plan. I have a feeling that they're going to make the decision to stick around at a higher rate than those who are on the monthly plan. Now, we don't have a ton of data. Our membership is fairly small. We have about 50 to 55. I was just looking at the data earlier today, members. And then we also are looking at, we have free trials and things like that turned on. So all this to say, the bottom line here is that if you can avoid it, do away with a monthly membership option, especially if your community is about anything work related or professional related, because it takes more than 1 month to get networked, to get value out of something. So that is my bottom line answer to that question. All right. Yeah. Yes. So I just broke the rules again, just to like test my own rule and verify what I know to be true. And it is true. We're already also turning off free trials. It's not that I don't think free trials can work. I think they absolutely can, but they're not necessarily attracting the right kind of member. Now, the sales cycle is going to take longer if you turn off free trial. It's going to take someone more touch points, probably for most folks, to actually sign up. But then once you get that person in your membership, they're much more likely to stick around. And if you're thinking about community health holistically, that's what you want. You don't want a bunch of people in there for a month, 2 months, 7 days if it's a 7-day trial. You want people who are going to be in there for at least a few months so they can make friends, they can build relationships, they can make some progress, and then you can watch that progress and then share that progress that they're making and then share that out. As it's like a big virtuous cycle of everybody's winning in this environment. All right. Gabe, question from Gabe here. Great question, Jamar. Question from Gabe. One question: how can we bring back life to a stagnant community? I love this question because there's always something we can do. And a lot of our clients come to us with questions like this. Like, we launched a community 1 year ago, 2 years ago, or we had tried something before and it's just not working, but we're not quite ready to give up yet. And I love those clients because it's so important not to give up. It takes about 18 months for communities to really hit their stride. And for those of you who have been following me for a while, you're probably like sick of hearing me say that, but it's just the facts. Okay. And so if your community is stagnant, the number one thing to do is take a little bit of a step back. So I would ask you a couple questions about that. Number one, I think the most important question for me to ask you would be, when was the last time you talked to a handful, about 10 of your members, one-on-one? When was the last time you stepped back and invited them in for a conversation with you? Hopefully in person or on Zoom or phone call. Email doesn't even count. I'm not even going to let you count that. Okay. Like a real synchronous conversation. When was the last time you had one? And if you don't know, then that's the first step to take to bring that life back to the stagnant community. Because what you're going to need to do is take a step back and re-strategize. Because your first attempt at the community, it's not that it wasn't successful, it's that you learned that something is not quite right about it, that the energy might be off, the vibes might be off, the strategy that you took might just be slightly off. So step back, have those conversations. And Jamar, who is here right now, just did about, I'm not sure how many interviews you did actually, Jamar. I think you did about 10 of them with members. And as you will know, Jamar, and as I see on a regular basis with the research that I do for our clients, you learn so much from those conversations that you would never even realize. Like, people are able to articulate things back to you in a way that can really, really change the way that you show up in your community. So that's number one. And then number two would be to get all of that information then together and pull some insights on it and decide, okay, what is our strategy moving forward? So we have a whole structure for doing this. And I was just sharing that Jamar is doing this. He's going through our Engage Your Online Community course right now, which is inside of the CMJ community membership. And it helps you actually take that step back really diligently and strategically. Now, is it easy? No, it's not. It's very time consuming. It's time consuming to talk to people. It's time consuming to digest all the information that they've shared with you. But is it worth it? 100%, 100% worth it, because you're going to learn so much. You're going to come up with so many ideas. People are going to feel more connected to you and the work that you're doing. There's just no bad that comes out of it. So we give you the structure and the process for all of that so that you can step back and start to reinvigorate that stagnant community. Now, a lot of other community builders would probably would have just thrown out 15 tactics at you and been like, run a re-engagement campaign and blah, blah, blah. That's all fine and good, but they're just Band-Aids. They're just Band-Aids for what you actually need to do, which is to get strategic and build relationships, build trust, because that's where the real value of building community comes from, not just being able to show engagement was X% or Y% 1 month. So I feel very strongly about this, in case you can't tell. And I see a lot of BS out there that I just don't want you to follow and then get completely lost and like just lose your way on your journey. So I hope that's helpful, Gabe. If you have any more questions about that, please let me know. All right, Sarah, let's see. Oh, you mentioned I've been struggling with whether to provide a monthly option, but my work is usually quarterly, not monthly. Yeah, Sarah, like, since you're doing OKRs too, like, you're not gonna, maybe you can do like a cycle of setting OKRs in a month, but the actual, I mean, will know this much better and more intimately than I do, that actually following through and measuring them and like seeing the outcome of them is not going to be done in a month. I don't think OKRs are ever like, I don't want to speak on your expertise. Everyone follow Sarah if you are inspired to follow the OKR model for goal setting. Yeah, that's like her whole goal setting and OKRs is her whole area of expertise. So I'm not going to speak on behalf of that, but yeah, I don't think it makes total sense to focus on quarterly at least. As an entrepreneur myself who has tried to set OKRs multiple times for our team, and we've like defaulted basically to just SMART goals because OKRs have always confused me. I know that it takes probably about a year for us to like figure out what the real setup is, and I would want support through that whole process. So anyway, that's all to say, yes, I think a non-monthly option would make the most sense. Yeah, Jamar said, I was noticing when I raised my price, the monthly members started to churn way faster. Exactly. Yeah, because they think that they can just get in at the monthly price, get what they need, and then get out. And that's not how memberships work, not how community memberships work. It's not like you're just getting access to like a dump of content. It's not what a community is about. All right. And then Sarah, question, Carrie, you talk about quiet communities. Can you talk a bit about why and how you take that approach and how to ensure that a quiet community is high value? Yes. Yes. So we talk about quiet communities, and that's one of the principles that I use to design the communities that I build for ourselves, for the CMJ community, as well as for our clients. And it's just this concept that we're not creating engagement in our community for engagement's sake. Any kind of engagement that we're creating has to be purposeful and intentional. It has to either connect people to other people or to the purpose of the community. I call those the 2 P's, people or purpose. If the content that we're creating or the programs we're creating is not doing one of those 2 things, then it's just fluff. And what happens is that people start to tune that out over time and view your community as low value. So actually a quiet community, one in which there is less content, but it's very curated content, it's very thoughtful conversation that's happening there, is actually much higher value than one where there's constant content, constant questions being asked, constant memes being posted that aren't helping people make progress or meet other people. And you can see this in, let's say, like a Facebook group that's a free Facebook group for a coaching program or something like this. Like it might be wildly active. And from a vanity perspective, that might look really impressive for someone to say, yeah, I have, 100,000 people in my Facebook group and there's constant activity in there. But if it's not really connecting people to each other and to making progress towards purpose, then it's just a distraction. So that's why it's just something that I build into everything that we're doing. And that takes a lot of the pressure off, because what I really want people to take away from this is that they don't have to always be posting something every day. They don't even have to be posting something every week. But if they have something, even if it's every other week, or even just once a month, you do a gathering and then have great conversation around that gathering, that in and of itself can still be high enough value that people are willing to show up for it and pay for it, because it is curated, because it is going to help them make progress. So in communities, if people stop making progress, they will stop engaging. So we've got to help them through making that progress. And actually, if we're just throwing content at them, they're probably overwhelmed and confused and making less progress than they would if we just said, here's the thing that we're focusing on this month, or here's the thing that we're focusing on this week. So that's my take on quiet communities and why I think they're so, so important. All right. Amazing. Great questions. Oh, thank you, Gabe. Gabe says, I loved your book, by the way. It's amazing. Thank you so much. So I have some other questions really that came up beforehand. Oh, and then I wanted to follow up with Sarah here. So my members spontaneously voice shame for not participating, keeping up, and adopting the quiet community idea. I hope will help with that. Yeah, I've heard that so many times. I mean, our work involves a lot of interviews with members. And so we are usually coming in, like, for our clients and doing interviews with members of communities. And that is such a common sentiment of like, oh, I know I should be doing more here. Oh yeah. And like, I'm not taking advantage of this and I'm not doing that. And I know this value or this benefit is there and I just don't use it and I feel guilty about it. Like, our memberships and our communities should not be making people feel guilty. Now, is that entirely in your realm of responsibility for, taking care of their feelings? Absolutely not. Like, I want to name that. There's a lot of boundary work that we have to do as community builders. But there's a lot of design considerations that can help to reduce that guilt. And even just you saying, like, don't feel guilty, don't feel shame about this. As long as you are making a little bit of progress, that is something like that does go a very, very, very long way. This happens with courses a lot too, where people be like, I'm so sorry, I didn't do the homework. And it's like, well, we're not in high school anymore. I'm not grading you. So, like, I don't know what your history with education is and with courses, but like, don't apologize to me. Like, you didn't make the progress that you wanted to make. So what do you want to do about that now? Do you want to make the progress? Great. All right, then take a small action. You don't need to do it all today. So yes, again, very passionate about all of these things. I'm going to pull up my list of questions here. Actually a really common one that I just want to jump into before I even pull up my list. Because this one is on the list, it's at the top of the list, is what technology should I use as a community builder? That is a very complicated question. I had a coaching session yesterday where somebody came to me. I have them fill out an onboarding questionnaire, and they had a bunch of questions about how their community was going to support learning goals and things like that. And then I get on the call with them, and they essentially just wanted to know, like, well, what platform can I use to create? This was someone building a course to create a community of learners who can then, like, go on and talk to one another and do challenges together and have accountability buddies. And these were just like a smattering of what in my mind are technical requirements. So like, one of the technical requirements is to have matching capabilities in a platform. So when someone throws a bunch of information at me like that, I can't give them a great recommendation. I can't even necessarily answer that question in an hour, but I'm going to attempt to answer it for you in like 2 minutes right now with the broad strokes, which is that there are essentially two types of technology you need to be thinking about for running a community or membership: the front end technology and the back end technology. Your front end technology is the stuff that your members will actually be interfacing with. And sometimes all that is a community platform. That's all it is. And that's all that they see. Sometimes it's more than that. It's like a customer portal, and they'll actually see your email software when you send emails out and things like that. So there's the front end technology, and then there's the back end technology. And that's going to include things like your project management tools that you use, your communication tools that you use internally. What do you use for analytics? What do you use for automation? So Zapier and things like that. And so those are the two types of technology to be thinking about. I actually have a free workbook on tech stacks that you can download. I actually included it in this video description because I knew we were going to get into technology discussion as part of today's Ask Me Anything session. And that workbook helps you to identify, okay, what are the areas of front end technology that I need? What are the areas of back end technology that I need? And I can start to map that out now. We have some examples in each of those sections. So check that out if you are confused about technology, if you don't know what to build on. Yeah, just check that out. But I know a lot of people are mostly curious about the community platform itself when they're asking this question. They are like, what is the platform technology I should be using? So I want to break this down for you, that there are over 80 platforms on the market today. So again, I can't answer this question for you, specifically you and your custom situation, in an hour. But what I can do is share with you that there are categories of these 80 platforms, and I can direct you to the right categories to be looking at. So the first category are like enterprise level platforms. And for our corporate clients and our clients who are Fortune 500 companies, these are the ones that they should be looking at. So if you are a small or medium-sized business, I wouldn't even bother looking at these, but you might come across them in your research and they might confuse you. So I want to name what they are. They are Khoros, Khoros is one of them. That is a platform that's it's a 6-figure annually license, and something that, again, if you're a small or medium-sized business, like, don't look at it. It's not going to make sense for you. Don't let their ads distract you. Another one, Salesforce Experience Cloud, Higher Logic, Vanilla Higher Logic, which kind of bleeds into, there's an open source version of Vanilla that you can use. So those are the enterprise platforms. The next type are like these open source or coding, or like ones you have to custom develop alongside the platform. And these are generally going to be your more old school platforms, or platforms that you'll see active in a lot of like developer communities. So things like Discourse is one, discourse.org. It's a fabulous form structure, but it was built by one of the founders of Stack Overflow, and it looks and feels like very techy. And so I don't recommend it for a lot of my creator clients and small business clients because it scares people. It's actually very clean. It's a very clean interface, but it's very familiar to like a specific type of audience that I don't recommend the majority of people to use that. Now there's other ones too that have been around for ages and ages and ages, like Zenforo, and you'll see ones that are like plugins to WordPress sites and things like that. I consider those to be like overly complicated, not enough features. And if you don't have development resources in-house, they're going to be a pain in the butt to use. So just like, don't waste your time. Like, you have so many other things to be working on. And I work with founders sometimes who have like invested in a solution like that. And they're like, I've dumped so much time into this. It's that sunk cost fallacy. Like, I've spent so much time customizing this and making it my own. It's like, okay, well, what year did you do that in? Because the technology has advanced so very much since 2020, especially, that even if you were to scrap everything that you customized, you could start back up with like Circle tomorrow and get probably closer to or way better than what you already had. So don't let that stop you. So yeah, I see that all the time. Now, the third type of community platform is actually, there's two subtypes of this one. So I should have made like a whole visual for this, and maybe I will afterwards. But these are more of the communities that are focused on creators, small businesses, and mid-sized businesses. And there are free options and there are paid options. So the free options of these are things that you're probably very familiar with. So Facebook groups, Slack, Discord. where you can spin up a community within minutes and you don't have to pay for it, but you also don't have full control over the experience. You have to use lots and lots of workarounds to work with them. And especially in the case of like Facebook groups or even to some degree Slack, but mostly for Facebook groups, you can't get access to the data that you need about how people are connected to, like as customers to you. And I know like enormous enterprise companies that are still using Facebook groups. And I'm like, what are you doing? um, but I understand why people start there because it's free and the audience is already there. And that is a risk that you're taking by launching on one of those platforms. And most likely you will have to move off of it eventually if you take community really seriously and you take the community component of your membership really seriously. So those are the free ones. And then there's the paid ones, the ones that you're going to actually pay a license fee for. So these are what's known as a software as a service SaaS platforms. And so it's going to include things like Circle. I just mentioned that one. That's the one that we use for our community. And I'm going to be doing a lot more like tutorials and content around Circle in the near future because I've just really enjoyed using that platform. So that's one option. School, SKOOL, Heartbeat, Disciple, Mighty Networks. You've probably heard of many of these in your work or in your research. These are all options. And again, you're paying a license fee, but you're also able, it's got like a whole stack of functionality that you're not going to get with Facebook groups or Slack, such as pay gating, like paywalls that are automatically going to be set up for you really easily in the back end, analytics on retention and subscription numbers, engagement numbers, things like that. So it's more like an all-in-one kind of solution. And actually Circle just launched a whole marketing hub. So you can now like even do away with, I haven't done it and I'm not going to do it, but you could foreseeably, if in the foreseeable future, do away with like a ConvertKit or other email marketing software and just use Circle. I have a lot of concerns about deliverability and things like that, so I'm not going to do it. But I know a lot of folks who just want to get started. That will be fantastic for them. Yes, Jamar, I'm with you. I hate Facebook groups. I'm never on Facebook. I also feel the same way. WhatsApp is another example of this. But if you build an international community, I know a lot of people are like really stuck on WhatsApp. The main difference between like a Facebook group and a WhatsApp or a Discord is like WhatsApp and Discord are meant to be more of synchronous communication. So things that are happening live, like chat that's happening right away. Whereas Facebook groups, circles, things like that feel more like there's some spaciousness around it. Like I can respond to that in a few hours or even in a few days. I don't have to get on WhatsApp or like I will lose the thread of the conversation. Yeah. And for me personally, as somebody who gets really overwhelmed with all the communication that's happening, and I don't know anybody who doesn't feel that way, that just doesn't work for me. So that's why I don't usually recommend it. Yes. And then Sarah, as you said, yeah, I'm so happy with Circle. It's so clean. I like that you can switch communities instead of having a separate login for everyone. Much better UX. Yes, that's one of the things that drives me crazy about like, here's another whole subset of communities, which I don't even call communities because that's not their main like function, but like Teachable and Kajabi and Podia, they're course platforms that have community functionality onto them. They're going to force you to create separate logins for every course that you ever, or every like school that you ever join as a member. And that's going to drive your members crazy. I can't tell you how many times I've gone in these huge circles, like trying to figure out how to log into different creators, Kajabi setups. Oh my gosh. And I put the quotation marks there because they're generally thinking about community as just like responding to comments on like a worksheet or a video. It's not really community in the sense of, okay, well, we're going to have a discussion about this piece of content, or we're going to host an event next week, or we're going to have office hours, these kinds of things that Circle is going to enable you to do really easily right out of the box. So again, I have that tech stack workbook that I recommend downloading if you have not already organized your tech stack, and that's going to help you to just get everything in one place and start to think about other technology that you might need. It's very simple. Adrian mentioned, I thought Disco was pretty cool. I have not checked out Disco. Yeah, and there's some new ones that are getting started. I always give them a couple months because I just like want to see what they're doing. I also want to know like what the founding team, what their deal is. Like, are they here to really build community and support creators? and small businesses and medium-sized businesses, or are they here to just like get some money from VCs, build a thing, get it, talk to Alexis Ohanian, and then get out? I'm very cynical about people in tech, only because I grew up around them, and I was one of them. Okay, so another question that came in that I wanted to share an answer to was how much should all this stuff cost you? How much money should you be putting into building a community? Now, the answer to this question is going to be very different if I'm talking to an enterprise level organization versus creators and small business owners. I'm going to talk more to that second audience right now, because getting into enterprise budgets, which I know it's budgeting season for a lot of you right now, that's just not what I want to talk about right now. So, but I think, yeah, as Adrian said, you blink an eye and another community platform will appear. Yeah, that seems to be happening right now. All right. So to answer that question around how much should it cost? So I really think, especially as you're getting started, we let this thought of like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to spend so much time and so much money. We let that stop us when really we just need to put one foot in front of the other. And so actually your costs should really be just in the platform as you're beginning. You don't have to do anything fancy like sending out physical mail to new members or anything like that. That's all nice to have. And I think you can build it in as you start to like create really good onboarding and you learn what onboarding process is really working for your community. But you don't have to do any of that stuff. And I think you need to just start as simple as possible. Focus on the fundamentals. Again, connecting people to other people and to purpose. Focus there and really just iterate. And then for a lot of folks who are like, I'm not even willing to spend money on this at all, like it might not cost you anything to run your community initially because you could run it on something like WhatsApp or Facebook groups. Again, there are reasons for a business owner that that's not a good place to start, but for many of us, like as we're getting going, like that's a fine place to begin. So yeah, I just think it's important to keep in mind that actually we should be spending less money and more time as we're beginning. Now, over the long term though, I don't want that to seem like I'm suggesting that you then have to spend all your time all day in the community. Managing it is going to be a 24/7 job. No, because we need you to not burn out. We need you to be in this for the long haul. So I actually recommend that once you have launched your community, once it's out in the world, you spend about 2 to 3 hours per week in there. Again, not speaking to enterprise community builders right now. And you should be spending time doing other things for the community, such as marketing the community, tracking analytics and things like that. But in terms of the time you actually spend in the community, it should be about 2 to 3 hours max. That's for hosting events, for posting content, for answering questions, because you should not be the only person who's in there answering. And actually, you stepping back is a gift to your members to help them step up and say, actually, we can help each other. We don't need Carrie to have all the answers to questions. So I always like to create lots of spaciousness around that. There's a whole conversation going on in the chat right now about Facebook groups. Yes, and as Pat said, like with Facebook groups, it is totally about knowing your audience. Like, who are you really serving here? If it's like, and because I was one of them. I just moved back to California, but I was gonna say Midwestern moms. Like, I was one. I lived in Wisconsin, had a baby in a giant Stanley Cup. Okay, like if that's who you're going for, then Facebook groups might make sense for you. I'm part of a community of moms here in California, and there's a big WhatsApp community for us. There's also a Facebook group. It's very quiet, but the WhatsApp is like what's popping on a regular basis. I mostly just observe it, and most people that I've talked to are mostly just observing it because it all moves so fast that I'm just like, okay, I can only check in every couple days. It's just a waterfall of content. So it's not optimized. If they were to ask me my opinion, I would tell them to change. But you're doing what you can with what you have. You're knowing your audience. You're working with constraints, and I think that's perfectly fine. A lot of clients will come to me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm on Slack. I'm so sorry. I know I've made a huge mistake, but can you still help us? And I'm like, yes, I can totally still help you. I can still help you. Even if you're on Facebook groups, even if you're on Slack. I understand that we're usually most of the time not working in ideal circumstances. Yeah. So just know your people. I love it, Sarah. I'm a Gen X son with a millennial rising. That's cute. Um, yes. All right. Yes. Noticing lots of people leaving Slack to these other purpose built platforms. Same thing with Facebook. Even big corporations are finally like, okay, we will leave. I'm like, wow, it only took you 10 years to do that. Um, all right. Yes, and yeah, it's Adrian. So Adrian runs a really cool community for stamp collectors. I'm like obsessed with Adrian's many hobbies. Um, and yeah, that's stamp collectors. Like they're on Facebook. Like talk there. Um, so yeah. All right. So Sarah, you mentioned um, partly because of the single login thing that Carrie mentioned, Slack lets you switch between communities. Circle emulating that was super smart. Yeah, I agree. A lot of people will tell me when I do interviews, like, "Oh, I'm only part of this community, or I only participate because I have Slack open at work all day." Or maybe they would say that for Facebook because I have Facebook open all day, and so I see the notifications. I actually pay attention to them, but this is the risk that consultants are usually warning people against is like you are then putting your eggs in the Slack basket. You're putting your eggs in the Facebook basket. They're controlling the UX and UI. And at any moment, they could change the way that notifications roll out, the algorithm works, any of that. So that's usually the risk. But again, we're always working with what we have. Um, yes. Yeah. All right. I love this conversation that's going on in here. You all should keep talking about Facebook and stamp collecting. Um, Yes, yeah, for Adrian, yeah. There is a on Slack on the free version, there is a 90-day deletion of all content, or if you have too much content, it will delete after I forget what the actual capacity is, but it can happen even faster than every 90 days if you have a huge community. And the larger your community gets on Slack, the more if you wanted to upgrade to paid, the more it's going to cost because they charge you per user. So actually, Slack disincentivizes you from growing large, which in some cases is perfectly fine. Maybe you always are going to have a Slack community of like 100 people, and it's not going to grow to 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever. Um, but yeah, it really hurts when that Slack history goes away. It really, really hurts. It hurts internally too. We have the free version of Slack as a team. We had to upgrade once because we were like, we needed to find our old content. But actually, they started fully deleting it, so you can't even go back and get it. So anyway, it's just there's a lot to pay attention to, and content ownership and all that stuff is really important to be paying attention to. Yeah, I don't think any community builder. I always hesitate to give like these black and white suggestions, but think really long and hard before you ever invest in a community platform that charges you per seat in a community, because again, that's going to disincentivize you from wanting to grow. And I will say it again, not all communities are about growth. Growth does not mean that your community is successful, but I would say that in most cases, having more people in the community is going to be like that is going to be one of the signs of success, and how you deal with that is a whole other conversation. We talk about scaling coziness. We've talked about that in our email newsletters before, Kelly and I have. um, all right, okay. Yes, Pat, you are just being argumentative. No, I'm kidding. um, I love you all. It's funny if you're like watching this as a replay in like a few weeks or months, you're probably like, "What is Carrie talking about?" But yeah, just read the live stream chat on the side, and then you'll know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's so funny how like 5 years ago, I think I wrote a piece on how to migrate off of Facebook and why you should, and this topic is still like a hot topic today. It never stops being a hot topic. It really doesn't. Um, yeah. So you, Canadians are argumentative. I don't know. I don't know. Have you met Southerners? Well, that's not true, actually. It depends what kind of Southerner and how close you are with them. um, I'm Southerner again, so I can say these things. Oh, and that's right, Adrian and Pat, both Canadians. All right, so I've got a couple other questions that I had saved on the back burner, but if there's anything else that's coming up as I'm sharing through all of this, this isn't Ask Me Anything. You can ask me any topic about community building or memberships. I'm happy to answer that here. And while I just give you some time to drop those questions, I had one more that I definitely wanted to get to today um, around how long does it take to build a community? So I actually have, it's, it's wild. It's been such a slow year, just transparently speaking, as a consultant. I can feel what the market is doing because I see like what inbound inquiries are coming to me, and what's happening when I'm doing cold outreach, which I very rarely do, but I had to do this year because business development is a different beast than it was even a year ago. Um, I have a lot of inquiries coming to me right now, people wanting to launch before the end of the year, which is wild, by the way, because we're on October 22nd. Um, I am not Canadian, I'm American, and there is something really big happening here in 2 weeks. Something like a little tiny presidential election. And so if you're competing with the US election with your community launch, I wouldn't go up against it. So I just like I've been warning clients away from this. I'm like, it's your business, it's your community. That's fully, at the end of the day, that is up to you. My personal recommendation would be between that, US Thanksgiving, we just had Canadian Thanksgiving, but US Thanksgiving coming up and the holidays coming up. Plus, we just had Rosh Hashanah. And yeah, it's just, if you didn't launch something in mid-October, it's going to be very hard to launch anything until mid-January. And that's fine. Actually, starting in October to plan for a January launch is fantastic because it can take you a few weeks to get a launch together. If you have more spaciousness, great. I think in a rush scenario, you could do it in a few days. I have done it in a few days. I don't advise it, but in a realistic scenario, it should take you about 4 to 6 weeks to get everything, including the communications and the marketing for it, ready to go. And then from there, it's going to take you, like, that's not the actual work of building community. Like, that's your launch. The actual work of building community is then talking to your people, hosting the events, hosting the gatherings, doing like sharing back with the community. I'm sorry, with on social media or on your email newsletter, like join the community, join the community, join the community. All of that is the work that is ongoing. And that's what takes about 18 months to really hit its stride. But you could get a community launched within a few days. But yeah, I do want to warn all of you all about timelines. And this is something we talk about with our clients every year because they always come to us in like August and they're like, okay, I'm ready to launch in October. And that's fine. We can usually make that happen. But again, like mid-October is really the last part of the year that we recommend launching at until January. There are some special circumstances, especially I think it was the year 2021 when everybody had like a bunch of like, not everybody, let's not say that. When there were a lot of entrepreneurs who had been selling courses and made a ton of money and they had a ton of cash lying around. And in December, they started to get really worried about paying taxes. So they're like, okay, well, I made a lot of money this year and that's great, but now I'm gonna have to pay taxes on it. So how can I invest back in my business here in December by December 31st so that I can like take that out of, make it like a tax exempt investment for my business. So if anybody here watches or has watched Schitt's Creek, you'll know like just because something is tax exempt doesn't mean it's free, but it will sometimes feel like it to entrepreneurs. And so sometimes there will be situations in which an end of December launch is very smart and very strategic. But I would say like, I don't know an industry that I would recommend that in this year. I really don't. Somebody tell me if you could think of one. But anyway, let's see if there's any other questions. Pat said, we have Canadians stationed in every major city across the world. One day we will take over and then you'll all be sorry. I know how you'd say that. Yes, I welcome the Canadian overlords. All right, what do I think of the AI being baked into the platforms instead of keeping it open? I'm not sure what you mean about instead of keeping it open, but in terms of the AI that's being baked in, I think a lot of it is honestly like not very good. I think a lot of it is like kind of just being thrown out there, being like, we need an AI component, or like, it's basically just like we have Grammarly plugged into our platform, and like that's not that helpful. So yeah, if there was something else to address about that, let me know. All right. There's one more question here, and then I will have to run to a meeting with Kelly on my team. But what is the best way to choose pricing for your online community? So Roger asked this. Great question. I have a video specifically about that. So given my time crunch right now, I won't answer that in detail, but I will post it as a comment on this video, how to choose pricing. And we talked at the very beginning of this live, Roger, about monthly versus quarterly versus annual billing. And I recommend going back and watching that to think about pricing as well, because pricing isn't just like the actual price itself, but also how often are you going to be charging for it. All right. Okay. Beautiful, my friends. I want to just hang out here and chat with the Canadians in the chat. Okay. Anyway, I just love this so much. Appreciate you all. You're all doing incredible work. Oh, Sarah, you're actually going to be in Toronto for the US election. I'm going to be in DC the week after the election, so wish me luck. Maybe I'll do a live from DC. It has nothing to do with the election, although it is some work with the government. So again, wish me luck. Thank you, everybody. Have beautiful days. Let me know if you have any other questions about community building. I will be happy to do another one of these again. This was really, really fun. Thank you, Jamar, for the kick in the pants to do these YouTube lives. We have one more of them coming up next week at this specific time, and it is with Jamar Diggs. We should all be so lucky. Jamar is an incredible community builder building the Low Lift Club that's all about investing in YouTube for business owners, but also just like making marketing more of a low lift than we often make it out to be. And he's like just given me so much permission to just calm down with everything that I do as a business owner. So I'm so excited to talk to you, Jamar, about everything you've been learning this whole journey, and just what you're doing so freaking well that so many people should be learning from. Okay, my friends, I will see you on the internet, and take care, everybody. Bye.